Hello, everybody. I'm Dustin Benzel, and welcome back to another Pokemon Reflections 4th Generation. This is part 3. So let's jump right in. Now, in the previous episode, I was discussing the Pokemon, their evolutions, and a little bit about themselves and stuff like that. I rambled on way too much about Ampom and Ambipom. So let's almost jump right into it, but I want to clarify. I'm gonna try to make this particular part a lot shorter than the previous one, so I'll probably be forced to end this around the 38-37 mark, as I want to really cut it this time. And if I can't quite finish with 4th gen by this particular moment, there will be an additional 4th part. So I just wanted to make sure to clarify what's going to happen, because I really want to force myself to end at that 37-minute mark, just so we can compensate for the fact that the last one was almost 50 minutes. It was like 47 minutes and stuff like that. And that was kind of not what I wanted. So let's jump right into it and stuff like that. So we pretty much discussed Pikachu and stuff like that. We discussed Starly in a little bit of detail, Apom and everything. So let's jump into Turtwig right here. Now, if you remember, I discussed everything, the history, a little bit about Turtwig and stuff like that, and a little bit of its development and stuff like that. But as I said, the most disappointing thing about Turtwig, or rather Torterra, is that it didn't get a single battle win against anything. And for someone like me, I don't count the battles, skirmishes with Team Rocket, because no, really, who really cares about Team Rocket in terms of battling? Sure, there may be times where occasionally maybe one of their Pokemon knocks out Pikachu, at least temporarily or something, because they want to have that particular plot device edge over Ash and the group. Sorry, I don't know why I'm tired. I just ate lunch like before making these videos. No, sorry. So yeah, it was a little how shall I put this? Disappointing that Torterra did not get any particular wins. Oh man. Oh, winter is a horrible time to be making videos in the car. Summer will be worse when it's really hot and I have to roll down windows or something like that. But anyway, sorry about that distraction. So yeah, it's like, they could have added an additional episode, and they could have gotten rid of that certain episode that really didn't have anything. And they could have just had a battle with Torterra, and Torterra could have like swept some powerful trainer that was as cocky as Mandy. Remember how cocky Mandy was in the 1st generation? Yeah, I'll discuss that when I do my reflections on 1st generation, which will be a long time from now, but whatever. Anyway, moving on. Sorry about that. So yeah, it would have been nice to have Torterra battling a trainer and then doing so well. It's like Torterra just didn't get anything, and I just can't understand logic. I mean, Sceptile came back and beat a Darkrai, but we'll discuss that when I discuss the league. So yeah, I'm very disappointed that Torterra didn't work out the way that I would have preferred or would have liked to. So that's pretty much. So let's jump back and do Chimchar, Monferno, and Infernape. Now, I pretty much all discussed everything that happened with Chimchar and why it was so amazing, but I want to go a little bit more in depth and stuff like that. I remember saying that Chimchar was abused by Paul, and so it had problems, and every time it got Blaze, it would become crazy from the power because of the abuse that it took from Paul and stuff like that. And it took a while before the Pokemon of itself actually could control itself under Blaze, and that resulted when Chimchar fully evolved into Infernape. Um, Infernape. Infernape? No. Okay. It's Infernape. That's right. That's what the dub calls it. I prefer calling it Infernape because it just sounds better to me, because it's like broken up, and it's like you have to try so hard just to say Infernape and stuff like that without really having that break. So that's kind of why sometimes I might call it Infernape, because it sounds a little better because it feels broken up, so I don't have to push forward. But it is Infernape and stuff like that. Infernape. So Infernape, sorry. Like Inferno and stuff like that. Anyway, so yeah, it was pretty nice. And like I said, Infernape is basically one of the best Pokemon that Ash will ever have because of the bond between Ash and Infernape. The cool thing about Infernape is that there are two moments where Ash hugged Infernape. There was actually a moment where right after Ash caught Chimchar or whatever, it was like around there, and it was like Tears for Fears or Fears for Tears or some episode title like that, where it was just about Chimchar and Ash and adjusting to its new life and stuff like that. And Chimchar just broke into crying and Ash held it and stuff like that. That was pretty cute. But the cool thing was when Chimchar fully evolved into Infernape, and then when it beat Luxray, Volkner's Luxray, when that happened, um, and hold on, where am I? Oh man, I don't know. I'm tired. And it mastered well, it didn't master Blaze, but it managed to keep under control as a result from Blaze. And then Infernape used a blazed powered flame wheel to knock out Luxray. And then when Ash beat Volkner, everyone was excited. And Ash ended up hugging Infernape and swinging it around and stuff like that. And that was a very fun moment. And then there was the league battle, and I probably should address this when I talk about the league, but we might as well discuss it now since I'm just discussing this particular moment. After Ash beat his rival Paul, then there was that moment where Ash and Infernape actually embraced, and it was really a nice, touching moment, because it was like really cool. It was like it's really nice to it's kind of a nice touch to see Pokemon trainers having their feelings out and stuff like that, or towards their Pokemon, and they actually embrace. It's kind of nice when a Pokemon trainer embraces with his Pokemon and stuff like that, especially when they're like huge and gigantic and stuff like that. Life size basically. You know, so that's basically Infernape. I don't know if there's anything else to discuss in terms of Ash's Pokemon in depth. I mean, there's Buizel. Buizel was a pretty cool Pokemon, and stuff like that. But it could have at least gotten a little bit more battling and stuff like that. I mean, it was pretty good in the beginning of when Ash actually got it and stuff like that. And it's kind of weird that Ash and Buizel seem to have more of a connection to each other, and we're really one of a pair of sorry. I don't know why I can't say what I'm trying to say. um they really were like a pair. I mean, there was like one particular opening or ending where Weasel was next to Ash, and they were wearing pretty much the same thing. They were doing punches and stuff like that, and Ash and Weasel really did have a good bond with each other. Like Ash usually always does with his Pokemon. He always has a good bond with his Pokemon and stuff like that. But it was kind of interesting to see how the moment that Ash got Weasel, and Ash bonded with Weasel and everything of that nature, it was just weird that the moment that happened, any history or connection that Weasel may have had with Dawn, for the most part, was completely erased. It was mostly about Weasel being with Ash and stuff like that. So that was pretty interesting that it was just a transition. I mean, sure, it was this at a sacrifice of Apom, and Apom and Ash technically had an even deeper bond because Apom was a kind of a jealous type and really liked Ash and stuff like that. But it was kind of a nice, because Ash and Weasel made sense. I mean, it was really nice to see Ash and Weasel, because It was either Buizel or like Schloss or Shellos or however you want to pronounce that Pokemon that looks like a slug and stuff like that. That's like a water Pokemon that evolves into Gastrodon, which is a water ground Pokemon, I believe, something like that. So it was really nice to see Buizel and Ash having that bond and stuff like that. So then we move into Gligar, and I've already discussed how weird it was with the not having anything until it evolved. That's kind of disappointing. Um, you can outright say that Ash's Gligar is probably the weakest Gligar that has appeared in the series, because the Gligar Man episode in Johto, as well as Morrison's Gligar, you know, they were actually kind of strong and stuff like that. But for some reason, it's kind of weird that Ash actually got a kind of a mentally challenged Gligar. I guess you could put it like that. Sorry. Oh god. Oh man. Oh man. Oh. I don't know why I don't feel. Oh, I'm probably gonna edit that out. Maybe, I don't know. Uh, Depends on if it's slightly amusing. Probably not though. Okay. Anyway. It's a little frustrating to see that Gligar was basically a mentally challenged version. I mean, there's nothing wrong with Gligar being special, but at the very least, it didn't have to be completely messed up that it actually needed an evolution, because even when Gligar was doing its thing during the evolution episode, it still came off kind of like a mentally challenged Pokemon, basically. And I don't know if that's actually insulting, considering it's a Pokemon and stuff like that. But you know, eh, oh man, But yeah, it was kind of odd just having Gligar just be mentally challenged, and when it evolved into Gliscor, it's not like it really uh it didn't exactly erase its special mental problems, I guess you could say. But at least Gliscor was like could technically be considered smarter than Gligar, at least technically, and was at least stronger and stuff like that. So I kind of wish they did more with Gligar, because Gligar was special. Well, clearly special, but it felt like they should have done more with Gligar before evolving it. I was perfectly fine how it ended and stuff like that. But it would have been nice if Gligar actually had more things and stuff like that. But anyway, moving on. I was a little upset when Ash released Gliscor, because that was pretty horrible. That was a pretty sad episode for the most part, because it was like, oh, Ash isn't gonna get Gliscor ever again, or not use Gliscor ever again. But well, as it turned out, it was only temporary, because Gliscor is actually at Professor Oak's now. So, yeah, that was kind of weird. It's like it wasn't until 5th gen that, hey, we can actually have Ash capturing more than 5 particular Pokemon and not have to worry about that 6th slot. And I was like, well, why didn't you think of that in the first place? Why did Gliscor have to be um released temporarily just because Gibble needed to be caught? And I was kind of disappointed in that, because I actually had a story in my head of how they could have done this, because it was pretty much obvious the moment that Ash got Gliscor so early in the series that this couldn't just be Ash's team, and that they probably would have given Ash an additional Pokemon, because if you remember correctly, in the Hoenn region, Snorunt was caught so late that it wouldn't have made sense to caught Snorunt and stuff like that. But so it was the fact that Gligar was caught so early, especially its fully evolved form, Gliscor, so early before the 5th gym, if I'm not mistaken. Because, yeah, no, after 5th gym? I know it was before Fantina. No, Fantino's 5th gym. So, yeah, it was before the 5th gym, because Grottle evolved after Gligar evolved. So it was after Crasher Wake that Gligar evolved. Okay, I see. I see now. Because if you remember correctly, sorry. Because if you remember correctly, Gligar wanted to be battling, but then they were like, no, Crasher Wake is a water type gym leader or something like that. So Weasel, or Turtwig, and Pikachu were going to be used, and it was a little weird. It was kind of weird that Gligar actually wanted to battle and wanted to be in battling, but it just wasn't that strong or that intelligent or something like that. It was a very weird case. But anyway, back to whatever I was talking about. Can't think of it. Whoa, hold on. I think I have to stop this because I don't want. Well, I could just edit, I guess. So I guess we'll be like 38 minutes or 39 minutes before I stop it. And I'll just edit this blank out. What was I going to discuss? Oh, I don't think it was about Gliscor, was it? Oh, man. How could I not remember? What was I talking about? No. Oh, man. Ah. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. There was a point. Gliscor. Oh yeah, because it was Gliscor was caught so early that hey, or Gliscor happened so early before the fifth gym that Ash probably was going to release something or move something around so he could catch an additional Pokemon. And the story that I had was that Gliscor was going to be like sick or something like that, and Professor Oak and Professor Rowan would get involved and stuff like that, and then Gliscor would be temporarily removed from Ash's team to allow Ash to capture another Pokemon, and but at that particular moment, I was thinking of Riolu because when that Riolu special happened, Ash already had Gligar, so how could you explain Ash getting a Riolu? And that was how I was thinking that Ash was going to get Riolu. No idea that it was not going to happen, and Ash was going to end up getting a Gibble, and therefore Ash had to release Gliscor. Now on to Gibble. It's kind of weird. It's Gibble isn't exactly mentally challenged, as like say Gligar, because at least Gligar actually had a personality. Gibble is just someone who's just like so thick-headed and dense that just doesn't have many reactions to things and stuff like that. So it was kind of weird to get rid of Gliscor, and then give Ash an additional kind of mentally challenged Pokemon, just to make up for the fact, oh, we don't have Gliscor anymore. And I was like, what? No, why? Why? What's the point of that? Um, I mean, we already saw Gibble prior to this. Ash capturing his own Gibble with, I believe it was Corey, and was it Lila? Is it Lila? Lyra. Sorry. It was like Lila. Oh, Lyra. I knew that sounded close. It was like, so when Corey and Lyra came for a contest with Dawn where Swine was completely trounced by James dressing up as Jesselina and him using Carnivine and stuff like that. Corey actually caught a Gibble, and the Gibble in that particular episode was pretty okay. It was like you would think that Ash would have caught something like that and stuff like that. But no, we had to get a special Gibble. We had to have the thick-headed, dense Pokemon that barely reacts to anything and just stares absent-mindedly at things and stuff like that. Yeah, let's give Ash that Pokemon. They could have given Gibble any other personality, and I would have been fine with it, but it's kind of weird that they got rid of one semi-mentally challenged Gliscor, I guess you could say, and then ended up giving Ash a Gibble, that pretty much had its own mental issues and stuff like that. I mean, maybe because they didn't want to give Ash to give a Gibble that had a strong personality, I guess. They kind of wanted a mild personality to compensate for um Gibble having powerful moves and stuff like that. So maybe they didn't want to give it a strong personality, but they didn't necessarily have to make it thick-headed or dense without reacting to anything, because most of the time Gibble would just like chew on people's heads, and it really didn't laugh very much. It rarely showed any other emotions or feelings outside of being absent-minded. When it was shocked, it'd be like, Gibble, Gibble. There was times where it like smiled and stuff like that, but it like took so much effort for that to happen. So I guess that covers Ash's Pokemon. And final rating, I would say, yeah, Ash's Sinnoh team, fourth generation team, was probably the overall best at the end of the thing, because it had the most great evolutions and stuff like that. It was pretty powerful team, and I would think that at the end of the particular generation, it was the strongest team. You know, I'm pretty sure Ash's Sinnoh team, fourth gen, could easily take on Ash's fifth generation Pokemon. The only Pokemon that would give Ash's Sinnoh Pokemon a trouble would have to be Crocodile. Of course, Infernape would beat Crocodile senselessly, pretty much. Torterra might be able to do the same. Gliscor probably might. No, never mind. I'm thinking Gliscor and Torterra. Gliscor could take on Torterra. No. Um, Crocodile probably could beat Gliscor. Possibly would make sense. See what else. Weasel at best would probably tie with Crocodile. Staraptor probably could beat Crocodile, possibly, if it was fast enough, but I would think a couple of Stone Edges to Staraptor, and Staraptor would be down. Um, Considering Crocodile has Dragon Claw, I don't think Gibble would be able to fare too well, but Gibble would have an advantage. But so I have no idea why I'm doing that. I have no idea why I'm comparing Ash's Pokemon to each other. Sorry about that. So yeah, I would have to rate Ash's fourth generation Pokemon as really strong at the end of the series. I mean, first generation, the only thing that Ash really had at that particular moment was basically Charizard, and it was disobedient. So it's not like Ash really had a lot of choices there. At the end of second generation, Ash didn't have anything at that particular moment, because second generation was screwed over, and we'll discuss that when we get there. Third generation, well, before the league, if we compare it, Ash definitely had a stronger before the league, but at the end, Torterra is weaker than Sceptile. I can guarantee you that. Um, but I think Infernape could fare very well against Infernape, because but I think Sceptile probably would end up losing, possibly just out of the fact that Infernape, I believe, is faster than Sceptile, or at least Ash's Infernape is faster than Sceptile, and Ash's Sceptile, and Infernape having that super effective hits and stuff like that. And um Sceptile really doesn't have that many moves. It either has normal or grass type moves. I don't think it has any dragon type moves or anything like that. So, well, there's that. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. I would think fourth generation would probably be Ash's strongest team, and it might actually beat by fifth generation. Or not fifth generation, sixth generation. If Ash pretty much does end up getting Pikachu, Talonflame, Greninja, Halucha, Gudra, and let's say either another fully evolved Pokemon or even Phantup, I would think that Ash's sixth generation could contend to be the end strong Pokemon. It's just that Torterra and Infernape combined kind of give it that more of an edge. But we'll discuss that when we come to it and stuff like that. So let's move into the rivals real quick, and then we'll see if we can get into the league. Um Now, I don't know. Between Gary and Paul, I would almost have to say that I technically like Gary more than Paul, because Gary was just pretty much arrogant, but at least Gary had his good sides. Paul was just downright rude and abusive, and he wasn't really a good person to want to be friends with, basically. And that's Paul's fault, not anyone else's fault, and stuff like that. And so in terms of personality, I would think that Gary is more likable as a rival. But the problem with that is, even if Gary is likable, I almost have a feeling that Paul would technically be a stronger rival than Gary, even though technically Gary probably could beat Paul when push came to shove and the riders are forced to make a decision. I think that Gary might very well come out on top. Just like if it was like a final battle with Ash and Ash was battling all of his previous rivals, I could easily see how Gary would come out on top, and then it would just be Ash versus Gary in a full battle, and or even not necessarily a full battle, but maybe multiple full battles and stuff like that. And even though Gary is not really a battler anymore, and he didn't exactly fare very well against Team Galactic with his Blastoise and Electivire, I believe at this particular moment. I could still see, Gary being a strong contender, but yeah, but since Gary became a researcher like Professor Oak, his grandfather, I definitely see Paul being stronger than Gary. I mean, I could see Gary beating Paul, but realistically, I think Paul could beat Gary. So since this is fourth generation, let's just talk about Gary or Paul. Yeah. Oh, this is about fourth generation, and that's where Paul came from. But let's talk about Gary some more. And the problem with Paul was that his personality was kind of awful, and he wasn't very likable. But he was a very powerful rival for Ash. In terms of strength between Gary and Paul, and their comparison to Gary battling Ash or Paul battling Ash, Paul is definitely the stronger rival because Paul pushed Ash into a corner multiple times, and Ash just couldn't fight back. It wasn't until only the league battle that it ended. Now the battles dispersed between the fourth generation between Ash and Paul were kind of light, um, but there were some memorable battles. Most notably was the full battle at Lake Acuity. Now, that one I just don't exactly agree with because Ash only got 2 wins and Paul ended up winning. Yeah, because it's not like Pikachu could have at least beaten Honchkrow or something like that, or Gliscor could have beaten something, and it was kind of disappointing to see Ursaring being so powerful, so overpowered. That's one thing that I don't get about Ursaring. Ash could have easily caught Ursaring if that was the case, and Ash was doing pretty well against Ursaring. I'm sure Ash would have actually come out on top of Ursaring, but Paul had to be a jerk and had to come in with his Chimchar, I believe, at this particular moment when he had Chimchar, and Chimchar pretty much used its fire attacks, and Chimchar ended up beating Ursaring. Paul ended up capturing Ursaring and being like, "Ooh, well, this might be a keeper," because Paul was very notable for having released any Pokemon that he deemed unworthy of being on his team. And then next thing you know, Ursaring becomes completely overpowered, knocking everything left, right, left, right. But the funny thing is, no matter what battle it was in, Chimchar or even Infernape, well, no, it was always Chimchar. No matter what, Chimchar always came out on top of Ursaring, which is absolutely hilarious. Because no matter what Ursaring took out, Weasel, Staraptor, even Pikachu, Chimchar always beat Paul's Ursaring, which is absolutely hilarious. That Ursaring never ever beat, never beat, um, uh, Chimchar, and that's just absolutely hilarious. But Paul's Ursaring was way too overpowered. I think I had a point with all this, but anyway, you know, anyway, so yeah, oh yeah, it was the cutie battle. Okay, um, so yeah, it was kind of disappointing to see Ursaring taking out all these Pokemon. So that was kind of awful and stuff like that. Um, and stuff like that. So yeah, that pretty much that. Everything else has to wait until the next the next part, which is going to be about the league and stuff like that, and finishing it up and stuff like that. So let's move on to Barry. Now Barry is interesting. Barry had an interesting personality, and even though he wasn't exactly the strongest, Barry wasn't exactly weak. Barry wasn't exactly a weak trainer. He did all right. He was pretty decent. I'd probably put him on par with like Morrison from the Hoenn League, something like that. That's where I think Barry's strength was around. I would think that anyway. So Barry was an interesting character. The weird thing is Barry wasn't revealed until I think Platinum came out, or roughly around Platinum, because if I remember correctly, I think Vinny. It's really, oh, sorry, that's a cat that running around that does things and stuff like that. Anyway, and it's actually getting on the car. Meow. Um, oh man. Oh, Vinny, calm down. Just give me a few minutes. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, Barry was an interesting character. He had a weird personality that was kind of based on his game appearances where it'd be like, I'm going to find you, stuff like that. But I don't think the anime really did justice for that. I think it was just like oh well, this should be Barry, part of Barry's character, just for the fun of it. We'll just add it and stuff like that. But Barry was pretty much a fun character and a fun rival. It's just disappointing that he lost to Paul in such a ridiculous way. I mean, come on, Barry could have at least beaten one of Paul's Pokemon. Barry wasn't that awful. It's not like Ash really had the best track record against Barry. Barry and Ash at this particular moment had to have been at least equal. I mean, Ash probably would have come on top, but Ash struggled against Paul against the battle against Paul in the league and stuff like that, but we'll discuss more of that later. Barry could have at least gotten one gym battle or one battle. All right. I'm actually gonna have to cut it here. I know it's a few minutes away from 37, but I'm not really sure that I'm gonna just discuss the league in just a few minutes. So well, that's gonna have to wait until the next part. The next part is gonna be really short. I can easily seeing it being really short because all I have to really do is discuss the league and just do some final thoughts on fourth generation, and we'll be pretty much done. So, sorry that this turned out to be a 4-part reflections, but hey, that's what happens when you ramble on and on and on and on, and sorry for all the distractions. I don't know if I sneezed in this video or the last video, but I definitely apologize for all that. So, yep. So I will see you in the next part. I'll probably he might not do it right now, but right after making this video, but I'll get to it eventually and stuff like that after I think about things some more and stuff like that. But I have to move on to making other type of videos from there and stuff like that. And so I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.